Welcome to JS Sports Insiders. We're here today with Lori Nickel, beat reporter of the Green Bay Packers. Gee, what to talk about? It's kind of a slow week. Well, first of all, let's talk about the story that you had and Trent Dilfer sort of picked up. You weren't working in collusion with Trent, but you arrived at the same sorts of conclusions that the Packers aren't getting it done in the fourth quarter. What are the reasons for that?
There are so many reasons. It's hard to pinpoint the blame on one person. In the fourth quarter or in overtime of the last three games, which is what I looked at, Trent looked at the whole season, but the last three games where I've seen the Packers struggle, they've had fumbles, they've had 4 penalties, they've had 2 interceptions by Rodgers. Some of the penalties, and that's the penalties just on offense, where there's been false starts or holding and things like that. They've had tough field position, so they really haven't played well down the stretch, and they haven't played well when you need to play your best. They're also not scoring as much as they have in the past. Last year, the Packers averaged 28 points a game, which I believe was a franchise record for the team. Now it's down a little bit, and in the last couple of games, it's certainly down. There's been problems with injuries, of course, problems with losing Ryan Grant, but also problems with coming on strong in the fourth quarter. The Packers don't believe it's because they choke under pressure or anything like that. They point to the late drive against Detroit that held on to the slight lead and secured a victory for them. And they don't point to the fact that teams are adjusting at halftime. I asked offensive coordinator Joe Philbin if that was an issue, if other teams' defenses are adjusting to the Packers' offense and making changes. And he said, no, these blitzes aren't a surprise. So a lot of it's coming down to execution, and I think injuries have put a monkey wrench into the whole offensive plan.
Well, let's talk about injuries, and the main one being, at least could last the whole season, to Jermichael Finley, and maybe their most potent receiver in the way that he's performed and the way they're looking for him to provide that kind of sizzle to the offense. Now he's off the table. Well, does this mean that Greg Jennings is going to reemerge to the Greg Jennings level that we know he can play at?
That's what's interesting, and Aaron Rodgers didn't get a chance to talk this week. He's dealing with the effects of a concussion. But I would like to know if he's going to start looking for number 85 again, now that he can't look for number 88. That, of course, is his favorite target, and why wouldn't he be? Jermichael Finley is an unbelievable playmaker. He's probably one of their best offensive playmakers, maybe since Javon Walker, in terms of just physical ability. Now that he's out and the knee injury is pretty serious, you have to look at Greg Jennings. Initially, we all thought that Greg Jennings might get more opportunities because Finley was out there, because Finley would draw double teams from the defense, and that would leave a receiver open. Now you don't have Finley out there drawing the defense, but you have to go to Jennings. You simply have to find him, and he has expressed his frustration with not getting as many catches. He only has 14 so far this year. When that has happened in the past, and it has amazingly happened in the past with Jennings, there has been a refocus to get him the ball, and I would expect to see that in the next couple of weeks. They'll have to do it if they want to win.
Well, I mean, Green Bay is a walking MASH unit. There isn't a team in the National Football League that's sustained as many injuries to starters than they have. Has it hurt the defense more or the offense more looking ahead to Miami?
That's a great question. Because defensively, I mean, Clay Matthews, he's probably their best playmaker in terms of pass rush and everything like that. Nick Barnett's a big question. And there's been more injuries to the defensive side of the ball. Nick Collins is playing with a knee that's totally unstable. But I would say the injuries have hurt this team more offensively. And I go back to the issue at running back. When you start the season with one true running back, or when you end up with one true running back in Brandon Jackson, and then have John Kuhn converted to running back and nobody else, they've had to play Brandon Jackson somewhat cautiously. They can't put him out there 20, 22 times a game with a carry because they can't afford to have him get hurt as well. You heard early on Mike McCarthy say we have to be careful with his carries. Well, that means if you're not committing yourself to the run game and you're not making that an emphasis, the other defense knows from the start who they need to prepare for, and it was all the receivers. And so I really think that domino effect of not having 3 running backs to begin the year and then going down to 2 after Ryan Grant went out, I think ultimately that has been the biggest struggle for them for the last 3 games, 2 of which they've lost.
Thanks, Lori. Join us again for another edition of JS Sports Insiders.